So, I watched this movie. I don't often watch. I have commented before on war movies, but it's kind of rare. I don't watch them that often. This often, I really don't. You know. And if anything, I'm more likely to watch, just plain action movies, which I still do not like so much. And in fact, I'm not entirely sure why I watch them in the first place, considering, there are war movies, which could also be action movies, and essentially they could also serve as a, historical sort of thing as well, which, is always better than just. But anyway, yeah, yeah, I mean, this in fact wasn't uninteresting. No, it wasn't. Critics still panned it. So it's called Allied. Yeah. And in fact, it's clever. I mean, they apparently they played a bit with the title at the beginning there. They left the lie bit linger on, which in fact I think I missed. So there we go. And I didn't think it would go in the direction. I didn't read the synopsis before heading in, which I think is better than reading it, just to really know how much just if I could predict as such, and don't think I could, not until I mean the so-called V section got him in to inform him and such. I you know I couldn't really predict, so interesting. Now apparently it's not exactly based in verified reality, but some sort of anecdote that could have happened or could not. So it's not exactly, yeah, it's not like that other movie I watched once with the sort of similar with the spy and they try to double cross him and such. I think that was much more realistic, whereas this, I read that in, it did have a lot of goofs. It didn't quite research history back then and such. So even something as simple as how cars were back then, how they switched off lights so they wouldn't be noticed by air raids, and instead they painted cars apparently, which is interesting. That's how this kind of info is always was interesting to learn about after watching historical movies usually. Um, Apparently, even something as simple as a cake. I had no idea. Apparently, well, yeah, it's kind of it's intuitive that people would have trouble finding ingredients in a war, but apparently, I had no idea. Some people even went so far as to have plastic cakes or something, just as a prop in the backdrop to weddings. Apparently. So that's interesting. Yeah, this that also flopped it. So the movie wasn't very accurate in that sense. Although it's still if it was accurate, then I suppose I wouldn't have read about it happening in the war, and possibly wouldn't have even known it explicitly unless they pointed it out in the film and such. Something weird that happened that was about to be pointed out in the movie. The definition of blue dye. Now, obviously, one could assume and presume what it is, but it's just kind of annoying that he just simply said, "Yeah, I know what it is," and that's it. So the conversation was because obviously mm, yeah, I'm not sure if it actually happened because researching it seems like it redirects back to the movie. So, but yeah, it's sort of intuitive, I guess. What happened? So I'm not saying it's not in this sense. Um, yeah, I'm assuming something like what's used to turn something like purple or something solution and such. Anyway, so yeah, I can see so why many critics are saying what they're saying. So yeah, cinematographically, it's pretty good. Um, it's quite strange, by the way, that same guy who did Forrest Gump did also Back to the Future and this movie. The ones that I've watched, of course, he did a lot more that I haven't watched. Um, Obviously, it has nothing to do with Back to the Future or anything, but some directors are very versatile. So Yeah. Cinematographically, it's pretty interesting. It did whole interest in terms of the thrill. But of course, it didn't have much of what it seemed like it might have, considering some people seem to. Well, it sort of sells itself as some sort of war movie in the sense that it's aggressive and such. But no, I prefer there to not be too much too much stuff happening. It's a bit strange though, because some stuff still happened. There was one suffocation, and there were loads of guns being shot, but not constantly throughout the movie. So it's always better. The more guns there are, in my opinion, the more shooting there is. Some so-called action movies, just have this constant thing. Remarkable that, and yeah, as I said before in the previous commentary, it does seem to follow this formula where the more guns there are, the more shots are fired, the more money it makes. The movie is. Sure enough, I don't know how and why this movie costs so much. I suppose CGI does cost. There wasn't exactly a lot of CGI, so I guess costume design cost as well. But I didn't think it cost so many millions. And I guess you get these big name actors, but they really spend a lot. If they didn't spend a lot, then they would have made profit, because it's not like it didn't make a lot at the box office, but because they spent so much more, they lost so much. They so essentially it was a box office flop, but only because they spent a lot. I think, in my opinion. So yeah, otherwise, just they should have gone the way. If they only spent like 5 million, which they could have, for a plain drama, they could have. Sure, CGI costs a bit, but it was only just a few minutes of it. It really shouldn't have cost many millions. Um, and if they did something like, this is a completely different genre, but the big fat Greek wedding, really kept it down low, only 5 million for its production budget, and it made so much more. That's generally the case. I think that needs to happen with most movies. I'm assuming you just keep it as low as possible, especially when it's just a drama essentially. It is. Sure, some CGI is used, but not a lot. It's mostly a drama. Uh, so I don't get why so many millions needed to be spent. This is why it was a flop. Anyway, so yeah, it was interesting, and there wasn't a lot of guns, just a couple mainly, and interest relied on the thrill in the latter part of the movie, which was thrilling, you know. It was, and the ending wasn't too bad either. Um, but yeah, it's still the goof. So that, I read that in reality the intelligence services might have tried to double cross, so they would recruit the spy against the country they're spying from. For now, that would have added an extra layer of interest. So the movie might have done that. I'm not sure if it really tried to remain closer to what was supposed to have happened for real. But it was never even verified that it happened. So they could have really taken an artistic license. I think it would have been slightly better, especially since already has such a long running time. You don't even need to add more. So could have just added a few scenes maybe and some conflict. But yeah. So yeah, if they did that, it would have remained closer to reality, to what's happened historically, but also it would have added an extra thrill, which I think it could have used really. It already had a thrill, but not sufficient, I think. And asking a drunk isn't quite the most interesting way to verify something. So that sort of dampened the effect of the thrill because yeah, sort of you know, and but otherwise, it wasn't too bad. It was yeah, it had passion, and obviously the scene with the sandstorm was powerful. Essentially, I think it's pretty unique. I don't think I've ever seen a sense, that specific scene in any other movie that I've seen so far, at least. So that's unique in this sense. Most movies have such scenes, except for the sandstorm. So yeah, it's still unique because of the sandstorm. And this is interesting. Yeah, now I wonder. I'm not sure if I'm assuming they might have used CGI for the sandstorm or not. I'm not sure. It looked a bit artificial, but could have also been real. I mean, sandstorms do exist. It's just a bit assuming they would be difficult to film and so dangerous. So maybe I opted for CGI. Maybe that's why it was so expensive. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, just it did have Glorious Bastards vibe, which I've watched many years ago, and I have thought like that more, despite there being more stuff happening. But I did somehow like it. Yeah, it's been many years now, so I don't quite remember why I liked it specifically. Maybe if I ever watch it again, I'll commentate then because I've watched many years ago before I ever started to commentate. Uh, but I definitely liked it more. Cinematographically, though, this was still something to behold. But as a thriller, I think Inglourious Basterds surpassed it. I mean, the ending with that is bombastic to say the least, right? I mean, surely surpasses the ending here. Of course, that's by Quentin Tarantino, not the Back to the Future director. Yeah, so but I mean, it's otherwise, it's still it did have Inglourious Basterds vibes, but it didn't quite follow its heart. Obviously, as I said, it didn't have as much of the thrill. It did have similar scenes, though, when they were in that prison and they were behind some walls and such. When enemy officers were approaching and such. That I think that was a very similar scene in Inglourious Basterds. Yeah. I don't quite remember why Bastards is spelled with an E. I think it's not sure if it is mentioned in the movie. I'm sure it is mentioned somewhere, but probably to be unique as I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I did prefer that though in terms of the thrill and um yeah. There are several actors in both movies, of course, which is why I'm reminded of it. At least two, at least I can remember. I think there are at least two. I'm not sure if there are any more. I can say August and Brad Pitt. I think were in both. Not sure about any others. But yeah, in typical Tarantino style, it's action packed and such. Now I don't know, if I watched it today, if I would have still been as excited about it, considering most I do not consider so-called action movies to be the most exciting things ever. But Tarantino does do something else. I don't know. I mean, it's been many years since I've seen one anyway, so I cannot quite say. But back then, I think I was thrilled. I could say. These days, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, in terms of this, so in terms of what it's supposed to be a romantic war thriller. I think it fulfills its objective there. I think mostly, what it's supposed to do. It does. People have compared it to Casablanca, but I haven't actually seen it yet, so I can't quite compare to that yet. So yeah, but otherwise, it's okay. I mean, it's not spectacular, but it's interesting for what it does. It's not below average. I think it's okay. It's interesting. It's somewhat thrilling. So the thing, yeah, it's okay anyway.